Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy Ricconi. Join us every weekday at this time to discuss news, spend time in the Word, and receive answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, Kathy. How are you doing this morning? And
good morning. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. This is broadcasting on Wednesday. It's going to be, I think, middle of March. We're actually ahead of that, taping, and interesting. We talk about a world of chaos, finding truth in a world of chaos. That the world at the moment is chaotic, with the Russians have sent troops into Ukraine, so they're actually physically there now.
Right, yeah, because they were just amassing them on the border, but now you said they have actually stepped in.
They actually are in. Now, they're not at the moment, and I think this is just going to be, hour by hour, but they're not shooting anybody yet, but they're there physically, and they've crossed over the border. So it's the beginning of what you would call an invasion. To be determined, what they do. I think what they're trying to do, my guess is that because they're so powerful, and the Ukrainians don't have the wherewithal to fight it, and we know that, interesting enough, NATO and the United States are not sending war planes or anything there to assist them. So I think they're going to just say, well, okay, we'll probably just surrender, would be my guess. I don't think they'll go all the way, because I don't think they have a shot. But you never know. People can fight as they want, and we'll see the impact of it. And by the way, this is the literally, when we say we're dealing with a world of chaos, the key word there is world.
Right.
That even 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we were almost completely what I'd call U.S. centric. Partly because we were the power, and it didn't really matter much. I mean, we knew with Reagan and Berlin Wall and taking down. Actually they actually came against Russia, and Russia dismantled. Because they went through a short period of democracy there, and but it was very U.S. centric, and what happened in the world, it had an impact, but it didn't have a direct impact. Well, today, the world is so intertwined,
right?
And everything that's going on has an impact now on everybody. By the way, in the world,
there's ripple effects for everything,
including us, and so. Typically, in the past, the United States would protect, like the Ukrainians. Well, okay, we're gonna if you invade them, then we're gonna come and fight you as well. Well, that's not happening. Two, NATO is, think of primarily European nations,
right?
And a little bit of Scandinavians, etc. They have arms too. They have military that they would say, well, if you do that, we're going to protect them. Well, they're not, and the reason, it's really easy. It's really simple. And remember, and this is the way the world is right now. It's all about the money. Guess who gets their fuel?
I was going to say a lot of this comes back to oil, right?
Oil gets their fuel from Russia.
A good majority of Europe does.
Europe, particularly Germans, that they're the ones that have the biggest army, and so they've said, we're not doing that. We're not.
Right.
We get our fuel from them. We can't afford now to do something because we're interdependent on it. And so there's all these interesting. And again, translates into chaos. Yeah. Because nothing's predictable, And what happens, if they, like, for example, we've already been told, if they take over Ukraine, our gas prices are going up.
Right. As if they're not already high enough.
And they're already high, way higher than what should be normal because of what's called OPEC, and they're controlling it, and we have limited supply, so we have to buy it from foreign places where the price, they set the prices. So, there'll be a spike in that. Well, that'll be, think about inflation. We're already struggling with cost, and fuel is so universal,
right?
That if at your home or your car, you do with gas or fuel or coal, and your gas certainly uses gas or diesel. Well, could be next week we're going to spend more money on the cost of that, which means I have less money to spend,
right?
Because of the pressure of that, So
right.
There's this interdependent world now that we say, because of that world, the result of that is chaos. And chaos is things that aren't predictable and aren't something that I can understand is going to play out normal, what I call normal, whatever that is.
Right.
And by the way, history shows us that nothing ultimately stays normal. I mean, so it's always a little bit chaotic just because of the nature of the enemy, Satan, having control of the world, and we're in a destructive place. But it's getting more so because of this interdependency. And as a result of that, something can happen, like Russia could invade Ukraine. Well, per se, I mean, think of it, that shouldn't matter to us, per se. I mean, yeah, we know what world politics do, but that's not
geographically. It's far away, so you could put it in a bubble, except that it just can't be put in a bubble.
It's not our it's not our battle, and but because of the implications of it, it's going to affect everybody in the world, and we're in a world of chaos, which is why we are doing this podcast. Is yes, it's going to get more chaotic, and we're going to report constantly. Did you know?
Right.
Another interesting, and this is funny to me. It's really funny, but I don't know if you've been following there in the Northeast in the Ivy League. Transgenders are winning their swim races in the women's swim races. Have you been following that?
I have not been following it, but I heard glimpses of it. Overheard in part of a conversation the other day, and the little bit I heard was pretty disturbing.
Yeah.
But yeah. So go ahead and enlighten us.
So these are males who identify as I'm a male. I'm physically a male.
Right. And have won competitions as a male.
And they won competitions as male. But now I identify as a female. Yeah. And so I declare myself transgender. And because I declare as a female, I enter into
the competition with the
female competitors. Well, you're a male, really, with female competitors. And guess what? They're winning.
Right.
No kidding. And this goes back to the essence of literally, and this is physical, it's absolute, men are stronger. It's the way they're structured. And the muscle ability, they're stronger than women. That's how God made it. And you can prove it with a really simple thing. Runners, there's world-class runners.
Yeah.
And they race, let's say, a mile. They can run a mile. There's men races and women races. The women world record,
right,
isn't even close to the male world record, or to a majority of the males that run the race. So the fastest woman wouldn't even finish in the top 100,
right,
of the top 100 males. And believe me, they've tried.
Right, right.
So they're giving it their best. but they can't do it because
Just designed differently.
It's a physical thing.
Right.
And so
and that's not to say that there aren't men who are weaker than some of our strongest women athletes.
Oh, man,
but you're talking about the top, the people who have trained to be athletic in a certain thing as a male, and same training for women, and their bodies are designed to be the top athletes as women. The top versus the top, it just is not made the same.
Yeah. I got a funny story about that. At our country club golf course, there's a rule that you have to finish 18 holes in 4 hours and 10 minutes. So you can't basically look for lost buzz for more than 20 seconds.
Right.
Because and if you don't, you get fined, and all, and they want to keep the pace of play up so that it doesn't go on for 6 hours.
Right.
So I'm out with friends of mine, and we're in a mountain. We're at Castle Pines Country Club, and we are. It's one of the premier courses actually in the country, but it's very hilly, and up and down and hills. So you ride karts. So I've got 4 guys, and we're pretty good, and we're keeping pace because I said, hey, I'm not going to get fined. You got to keep pace. So we're keeping pace. So behind us are 4 professional golfers, women golfers.
Wow.
They're carrying their bags. We're in carts. Every shot for 18 holes. They're right behind us, and they stand there with their arms crossed. Like, are you guys going to get going?
Are you ever moving on?
Are you ever, and we're in carts, and we're every time they're already out there because they hit it so straight and so far.
Right.
They're sitting there with their arms crossed. Like, yeah, we're a little bit stronger than you boys, and yeah. So it doesn't say anything about the nature of men and women, because God says I've created both of them in my image, but
yes,
the physicalness of it. Well, as this plays out is that, they're allowing, and so the authorities are allowing these guys that classify as girls, and they're winning. Of course, the girls are upset.
Of course they are, because they're working hard. And honestly, there's been such a fight to even get women's sports recognized and everything. So it's frustrating.
And then see, for me, is as I'm understanding the world of chaos, is, it's like, and this makes sense to you? Right. Why would you do that? It doesn't even make sense. And now you've created all this conflict. Right. And irritation and anger and lawsuits, and it's like, it's not that complicated, but think of the world we now live in. Right. It's chaotic, because now we can't say, well, of course women are going to be in a swim meet and men are going to be in their swim meet. It's like, oh my gosh, look at this. It's what I call nutty. It's crazy. Yeah. Because it doesn't, to me, it seemed that complicated to me. Like, you see the result, because why? Well, that's the way it works. So the world is chaotic. And we're trying to illustrate here the covenant, which is, and this is really important and why we set it up this way today. The world, per se, is nutty and getting nuttier. And so our thought, particularly when people say, well, God, how come you allow this to happen? And God says, well, the enemy has control of the world, and the natural is going to get worse and worse and worse, and more nuttier and nuttier and nuttier, particularly today because of technology, communication, because of what we now know, what's going to happen in Russia and Ukraine. Well, it'll be on the news. And then it'll have impact, and the investment community will respond. And so all of that, he said, because of that, it's going to get nuttier and nuttier. But he says, and this is cool, none of that matters, God speaking to me. I can deliver to you the covenant. I'm going to bless you to make you a blessing in the middle. Right in the middle of all of it. That place. So what we're trying to say is, don't get discouraged and don't get distracted, which is where I see a lot of people going right now, is they're kind of mad. Yeah. A lot of distraction by the storm. Yes. Rather than keeping your eyes fixed on Jesus and what he's calling, and then experiencing the supernatural. That's right. That's right. And the encouragement that we're trying to give as we talk through the covenant is that yes, the world is chaotic, but that doesn't determine God's ability to deliver the covenant. And the only thing that we need to understand about that, it may be delivered in a different way than we thought, but it still will be blessed to be a blessing. And he says, I want you to step into that and enjoy it. And again, we've talked about this, but the examples we have are, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that, yeah, they got captured. They lost their home. They lost their homeland. They lost their rulership. They lost the ability to worship in the temple. Everything changed for them. And it was, you would look at it per se as, well, that's very negative. It was really disappointing that they lost all that. And God said, yeah, you're going to be captured. Yeah, you're going to be under influence. Yeah, you'll be surrendered to an authority who's a dictator. But how about if I give you the covenant in there? I need to help you redefine that. And part of it is God speaking to us, which is something Linda and I have appreciated even over the last 2 years particularly, is do you understand the elements of what I'm trying to do to give you this beautiful life? And you might find, like for example, during COVID and the lockdowns particularly, well, you couldn't even go to a restaurant for a while.
Right.
And you couldn't supposedly gather, in big groups, so you couldn't even go to church.
Right.
And worship. So, okay, that makes people mad. And God says, well, yeah, that's the way this new world is operating at the moment. How about if I help you enjoy the blessing by having a different, you can still do worship and you can still be together in the Word, and let's do that in a smaller group and enjoy that. And hey, by the way, you can have fellowship. Yeah, you can't go out, but you can have people over for meals. And why don't you just enjoy sweet fellowship in a different way? And we embrace that. Like, okay,
yeah,
we're not going to get fretting about this or say, God, would you change it, or be mad about it. We're still living in the covenant.
Yeah.
But he's saying, I'm going to redefine it for you. Matter of fact, I may show you some things that you've been missing out on. That
are actually better.
That might be better.
Yeah, I think a lot of people found that.
To me. Yeah. So we've talked about the privileges. This last time we talked about protection, safety. We were in Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy, and Psalm 20. And this one is a cool one, Psalm 91, 1 through 16. Psalm 91, 1 to 16.
Yeah, this is a great passage.
Yeah.
All right. It says, he who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. For he will deliver you from the snare of the fowler, from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his pinions, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness is a shield and a buckler. You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, nor the destruction that wastes at noonday. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. You will only look with your eyes and see the recompense of the wicked. Because you have made the Lord your dwelling place, the Most High, who is my refuge, no evil shall be allowed to befall you, no plague come near your tent. For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. On their hands they will bear you up, lest you strike your foot against a stone. You will tread on the lion and the adder, the young lion and the serpent you will trample underfoot. Because he holds fast to me in love, I will deliver him. I will protect him because he knows my name. When he calls to me, I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will rescue him and honor him. With long life, I will satisfy him and show him my salvation.
Yep. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember, and we'll get into this in more depth, but we said the place, remember the place of the covenant is his kingdom.
Exactly, yeah.
Where he is operating in the spiritual superior to the world, it's going to translate into the world. So the blessing, and this is important too, isn't, well, in a sense, theological, and that, well, yeah, you get to go to heaven and you'll be blessed there, and you're going to have a difficult time on earth because,
but it's the here and now.
It happens
too.
in the kingdom, but not there. But no, it happens
Mm-hmm.
from the kingdom into our world. So it's real, stuff which he describes here. And he says, it's abiding in the secret place, which is living in the kingdom. Remember, we talked about that verse that Jesus said, in the kingdom, boys, to his disciples, I'm going to show you secrets that nobody else will be able to understand it.
Right.
And he says, if you live there, live in that place of secrets, that I'm giving you, my kingdom. I'm going to be your refuge and my fortress. And the word refuge is, I'm going to protect you. And fortress is the strength that it's not going to be overrun by anybody, because it's the strongest fortress it could possibly be.
Right.
And nobody can come against that. And then he says, I'm going to deliver you from the snare of the fowler. Okay, that's, and this is interesting. The snare is how they trap birds. And they basically set a trap that the bird doesn't understand as a trap, and goes into the trap, and then they get caught. So he's saying, you got an enemy, and you have people that are really tricky. And what are they trying to do? They're trying to trap you.
Right.
And the enemy particularly does it by having you react to situations where now you engage in the fleshly battle, arguing, debating, fighting, being angry at. And it's what I call the trap, is to hit what I call hit the tar baby.
Right.
Brer Rabbit, when he hit the tar baby and got his hand stuck, is I got to get you out of the kingdom, and then I want you to react to this because you think it's just and righteous, and in the surface it is, but it's a trap.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because even when you play that verse, it talks about the snare of the fowler in verse 3, but verse 2, what you talked about, he is my refuge and my fortress. Refuge is that place of safety. Fortress is literally a place of defense.
Yes.
And so I think what you're talking about, when we do get baited into these things, we are putting on ourselves the need to be our own defender.
Right.
Thinking it is all about us and that we have the need to defend ourselves, rather than recognizing that he is our refuge, our safe place, as well as our defender.
Right. That's right. And I'm going to save you from pestilence. The truth will be your shield and buckler. You're going to understand things. You're not going to be afraid of things that happen. Things are happening around you, and this is interesting to me. And I deal with a lot of people who, in verse 7, it says, there's all kinds of stuff going around you, and destruction and falling and failure.
Yeah.
And people pray, how could you let that happen to me? And I say, wait a second. So you think you're exempt from what we've talked about is in the world you're going to have trouble.
Right.
And you think you should be exempt from that. So really what you're saying is you'd like God to put you back in the Garden of Eden and not have anything happening.
Right.
No, and I said, what's happening is, yes, there's trouble all around you, including things around you that aren't working. But he says what? It will not come near you. Now, by the way, it doesn't mean you don't experience it. It means it's not going to overwhelm you.
Right.
And that's why he says, down here that, no evil will befall you. And we say, well, that's not true.
Right.
Evil befalls everywhere, and we experience everything. And hey, by the way, you just told me in the world I'm going to have trouble. So how can you justify that sentence? By the way, this is what abiding's all about. Is that you read that sentence, that if you abide in the shelter of the Almighty, no evil will befall you.
Right.
And you properly say, well, wait a minute,
How's that work? 'Cause
Jesus
that's
said,
not maybe what I've seen.
Well, yeah, I don't see it. And number two is Jesus says, in the world, you're going to have what?
Trouble.
Trouble. And the word for evil is things that annoy, frustrate, irritate, and make you oppressed. And
so on the surface, those two things are antithetical.
So antithetical. And so you, again, usually what happens is we just say, well, I kind of know this. And yes, evil is going to befall me. So I guess there's nothing for me to worry about. That's the way it is. But abiding would say, wait a second. This doesn't make sense, because they're completely opposite statements on the surface. Okay, now here's the problem. We're Americans reading English, and there's 15,000 different words used in Scripture, but only 5,000 English words. So we interpret a word to mean something. Befall means it happens. Well, if we go to the Hebrew, it says this: no, things that irritate, frustrate, oppress, make things difficult for you will dominate your life.
Well, now that's a very different perception than befall.
Yes, yeah.
Right?
So it doesn't. So it say, oh, so Jesus said it's going to happen. Yep. It's going to irritate you. Yep. It's going to come against you. Yes. But he's saying you don't need to put up with it.
Yeah. So it's not going to dominate you, and it's not going to define what your life looks like.
Yeah. And so what I help people try to understand is that, first of all, it is going to happen to you. And what I see is that then people get into a place of what I call resignation or victim. Is right. Well, this is now characterizing my life because it is dominating me. And see, with the covenant, God says, well, let's go the opposite direction. Right. Yep, it happened. Yes, this thing has the potential to dominate you. Yes, it does. But he says, son, for rich, a rich, you don't need to put up with this. Because why? Well, because I'm going to deliver the covenant to you, and no evil will befall you, will dominate you. So you say no. And the question is, it's happened. So it's happening.
Right.
What do you got to say about this? How do you want to lead me, out of it, and you resolve it, because I don't need to live there. Why? Well, because the covenant is absolute. It isn't going to dominate you if you live in the covenant. So it's a remarkable truth, and he says, you're going to be blessed. The angels are going to take care of you, which is kind of cool. Yeah. We should mark this down. We'll come back sometime after the covenant. Let's do a little mini series on angels.
That would be fun.
That would be fun, because it's basically, if you say to the average Christian, do you think angels are there? Yes. And that's not a problem. They don't say no.
Right.
What do you think they're doing? I don't know. Aren't they worshiping?
There's some great passages that tell us, though.
Aren't they worshiping God? And do they have any involvement with you? I don't know. We almost, in that spiritual place of the heavenlies, see, because we haven't learned this, we dismiss that element of the spiritual life. And by the way, guess what? Angels are spoken of, discussed, described all throughout Old and New Testament. Right. And so it's kind of important, it's kind of.
And they have really cool things, the assignments that God gives them.
Yeah.
And and even we've talked about, we get to testify of his supernatural works to them when we're walking in covenant. So there's so much to go with there.
Yeah. But he says, I'm gonna have the angels, protect you. And I've got some fabulous stories of angels that we've experienced, and it's going to be fun to talk about that. So we'll do that. And he says, I'm going to be with you in trouble. I'm going to deliver you. I'm going to satisfy you. The covenant, as he looks at this aspect of protection, it doesn't say, and you'll be placed in a bubble where nothing will happen.
Right.
It's that in the middle of danger, because you're going to have danger and things are going to be troublesome and problematic and things are going to be a struggle. I will deliver you, protect you, show you the way through it so that it doesn't harm you. So that, like, for example, think of a fortress in the Middle Ages. Did they have people try to come against them? Sure.
Yeah.
Did they have attack? Yes. But if their fortress was such, even in the middle of the attack, which they had to participate in, they were protected because, and this is cool in a way. Remember, we've talked about how the armies worked. It's, you come and meet me out in the field, and my men will attack your men, and let's see who wins.
Right.
Well, is there any protection there?
No.
No.
No, you're in the wide open.
No. Where are you protected? In the fortress.
In the fortress, in those city walls,
Yeah,
really. Yeah.
Let's say in the fortress. And so where there was fortresses built, and they said, well, you can ask me all you want to come out and fight you. I'm not gonna. I'm in the. If you want to, go ahead. Come on. And by the way, what's in the fortress? The warriors, wives, children. They're all there. And they said, go ahead. Fine. We're not coming out for battle. Come and fight us in our fortress. And of course, they would decide, well, do we have a shot at that? Because there's a protection there,
right,
that wasn't out there in the field, and so
a protection and a vantage point.
An vantage point,
like
and
for
so
seeing things.
He says, "I'm going to be your fortress." It doesn't mean that they're not going to try to attack. It doesn't mean there's not difficulty. It doesn't mean there's pestilence. There's things out there. It's just I'm going to protect you if you live in my covenant, so that it doesn't dominate your life. And it's a beautiful sense of protection. And then this next verse is really cool. It's Exodus 23, 22 to 24. This is a remarkable truth that, like, wow, look at this.
Okay, you ready? But if you indeed obey his voice and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy to your enemies and an adversary to your adversaries. For my angel will go before you and bring you into the Amorites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Canaanites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, and I will cut them off. You shall not bow down to their gods, nor serve them, nor do according to their works, but you shall utterly overthrow them and completely break down their sacred pillars.
Yeah. So God says, well, let me tell you something. I'm going to become what? An enemy to who?
To your enemies.
And I'll be an adversary to who? Your adversaries.
To your adversaries, yeah.
Okay, so if somebody's coming against you, and you're living in the covenant, who are they coming against?
They're coming against God.
And what's God say about that?
Watch me, I got this.
I got this because, see, it's BB gun to nuclear explosion. They have nothing.
Right.
Now, against you, if it's just you, and you're operating in the natural, yeah, they could whack you, because they're fighting you. But he says if actually in the covenant, if they come against you, and this is conflict, this is oppression, this is agencies, this is business, these are things that are working against you, and they're trying to come against you,
right,
to either get you out of the way, or to take advantage of you because you're something that I don't agree with, and I want to win the game. And God says, well, when that happens, I'm their enemy. So in essence, think about that. It's like it's kind of simple, really. It's like, hey, they're fighting me, they ain't gonna win.
Right.
So in a way, he says, get out of the way.
Yeah.
Now we've learned that
Don't you love? I'm just going to interject real quick as you describe that. I can't help but think, my fantasy football team is called Mama Bear.
Yeah, Mama Bear.
But I can't help but think of like that Mama Bear type of thing from God. Like I can just picture, you're coming after my kids? You think you're coming after my kids? No way. It's that Mama Bear protective, but for him it's the Papa Bear.
yeah, and using that analogy, think about because we hike here in Colorado,
Uh-huh.
and they tell us, and we don't have grizzly bears, so grizzly bears are really bad news. I mean, like up in Alaska or Canada, if you come against a grizzly bear, you're in trouble. So be careful. But here it's called black bears or brown bears, but they're bears.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're generally not going to attack a human. But they said while you're out hiking,
Mm-hmm.
and you run across a baby bear,
Right.
by itself, that you think is by itself, get out of there. Because guess who's there?
The mama bear's
bear.
close by.
Mama bear. And Mama bear is going to take care of that baby.
Oh, absolutely.
And if they perceive or think even if you're not intending, but if you're potentially a threat, get out of there, because the mama bear is going to protect.
Oh, absolutely.
That baby. And that's what God says, is that they're dealing with me.
Mm-hmm.
You can trust me. They're dealing with me. And by the way, they don't have a shot, because I'm so powerful that I'm taking this. Now again, we remember we read that God says many times, I am going to ask you to run into the battle.
Yeah.
But if I do, it's because I'm engaging you, and you're in the process, knowing that I'm going to deliver you. So it's not about when he says, I got this, it's like, we say, well, great, I'll just sit on the sideline.
Right.
He's going to say, well, I need you to walk with me and watch what I'm about ready to do. But they're dealing with me, not just with you.
Right.
And then we'll finish this little section on safety and protection, the privilege of it. Go to Psalm 121, 7 and 8.
All right. 121, 7 and 8 says, the Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time forth and forevermore.
Yeah. So what did he just say? What did God just say I'm going to do? I'm going to take care of you.
I got it. I got it.
Yeah.
And I love that even you're going out and you're coming in from this time forth forevermore. That every aspect. I think sometimes we think that whatever we're dealing with is too small to bother God with.
Right.
Or he's gonna, he wants to take care of the big things, or he wants to take, or whatever the case. And this is the everything, the going out and the coming in. By the way, if you had any doubts, it's fully surrounding. I've got it all.
Right.
That's
right. And I'm gonna take care of it, so that take the authority of what I'm giving you, and realize that you have a situation, like we have a situation. I think I've described this in our businesses, where we're dealing in the medical industry, and there's regulations, and they're run by the state boards. And we have a couple situations where the state board is being, in a sense, attacking us because they're being irrational. And they're not even following their own regulations. They're making it difficult for us just because they want to. Why? Well, they're self-centered people who get power, and they can.
right.
Knowing ultimately, even they know ultimately, well, it may not stand up, but so what? In the meantime, I'm coming after you, and I'm going to try to stop certain things of function. So we could fret about that,
Right.
or we could say, well, Father, they're now an enemy against you.
Mm-hmm.
And you said you're going to give us protection and safety, life evermore. So we now come to you and say, in the name of Christ, what do you have to say about this? And then what do you want us to do about this? And and the answers are, well, here's how I want you to proceed. And then, by the way, I want you to pray that my covenant protection is going to be fulfilled, because now they're an enemy of me, and watch what I'm about ready to do, and we see it happen.
Right.
So we, instead of fretting or saying, this is going to dominate us, remember, no evil will befall you. Well, it's evil, and it's happened,
And it's happened.
and
Yeah.
it infected us, but it's not going to dominate us, because we're going to pray and trust. Why? Well, because of the covenant. Well, you don't need to put up with this. Now, it doesn't mean that tomorrow it's gone, which is
Right.
like, okay, take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
You said you're going to take care of it. Take care of it. He said, I got timing to this. I got
Right.
stuff.
Just stay with me in the process.
Stay with me. Stay with me. It's going to happen because
Mm-hmm.
why? Well, because of the covenant. You can
Mm-hmm.
trust me and come to me and take these promises which he speaks. So, and the one thing that I really look at when things happen, and by the way, they're happening all the time.
Right.
Well, wait a minute. They just became God's enemy. I know something about that. God said He's going to protect me. Life evermore is going to happen. I do receive these truths as my beginning point. Well, now I don't know specifically because that has to be played out in detail about this specific situation. So I don't take a universal. Well, of course it's going to work this way. It's show me specifically what it is that you want to do.
Yeah, and walk me into it.
And walk me into it. But I'm doing it out of a truth. Well, you said you're going to protect me.
Right.
And I believe that. I trust it. And by the way, when you experience it, it builds your confidence. Like, wow, this is pretty cool. It really works.
Well, and one of the things you're really talking about there, I learned a new word a few weeks ago, liminal space. That's that space between what is and what will be, between the now and what has been promised. And I think that's where people struggle a lot of times, is in that liminal space. And one of the things God is teaching me is, between the now and what I've promised is that praising in the middle.
Yeah.
And staying with him and walking, but praising ahead of what he's already said he's going to do, and believing for that and praising him already simply based on his character and what he has spoken as he walks us into it, even when we're not seeing it delivered yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And you were sharing, I know, a little bit earlier, because you're in the Northeast and you have storms. I think you shared on air that you had that retreat and God supernaturally parted the storm so you could actually get there and get you right behind a plow.
Yes, exactly. It was super cool.
And that was his answer for that. And then you say you're headed now on a trip and you're going to have a big snowstorm.
Right.
And this is important because it's out of the trust of the truth of it, but the specifics have to be played out by what he actually says and speaks. So you could say, well, hey, you parted that storm, so
aren't you going to part that again?
Part this one because we have a flight on Friday and we got to go. Well, what'd you do?
No, we asked him what he had to say, and his response was, you switch your flight and you get out Thursday. That storm's going nowhere.
That's right.
And Dan and I both abided on it and felt like that is what God was saying, is not I'm moving the storm, but no, you need to, I want you down there. You need to be down there at this amount of time. So go out Thursday, go switch your flight. And we were able to switch everything actually very easily.
Yeah. Yeah. So the premise is, and the truth is, the privilege is, I'm going to protect you, and I'm going to give you life forevermore, but it's not a system.
Right. And you can't expect that an answer that was given to you for this, even a similar situation one time, is going to be the same the next time.
Right.
It is specific instruction to specific time because God sees and knows it all.
Yeah. And so these are how the truths apply, is that, okay, I trust that. You've said it. I believe it. I receive it. But it has to be played out specifically, which is why discerning God's will is so critical, because he says, well, you can't take what I did, like you said last time, and say, well, do that again. Because he said, well, in this case, daughter and son, actually you need to get out earlier because that storm ain't moving.
Right.
Okay. And now what happened? You were protected. And kept safe and able to fulfill what you want to do, but it was in a different way.
Right.
So the truth was absolute, but the specific play out of that was different.
Right.
And that's really cool, because that's how God works, is enjoy me. And by the way, what is that doing? That's building your confidence.
Right.
Okay, I got an issue, I got a problem. You said now how does this apply to me specifically now? And this ought to be interesting. This ought to be fun to see. And that's how God works. So,
and just to kind of back up for anybody this benefits, if you had rewound these same two situations for us even 5 years ago, before we met you and Linda and really learned how to abide on specifics of things, which we're still learning, by the way, any of those would have sent me spinning, and I would be spending the next several days stressing and worrying about if we're going to get to go, am I not supposed to go on this trip? Was that not, did I make a mistake? All of these things. And I would be spinning in those thoughts, no joke.
Right.
And the next several days would be characterized by that.
Right.
But learning to walk and hear his instruction and step in confidence with what he promises. Instead, we see the forecast of the storm. Dan and I both go, we abide, we ask him what he has to say. He gives an instruction. We change our plans according to what his instruction was. And we're fully expecting that this is what we're stepping into. And we're just going to keep asking him along the way, what's next?
Right.
But without my mind, which would have been what I would have done, spinning and spiraling and stressing and worrying for the next 5 days until we go, or whatever it is, 3 days, I guess.
Yep. That's right. Well, that'll be fun to see what happens. So we're going to pick this up. We'll have another guest coming up here tomorrow, and then we have End Times Friday that we're in the very, very end of that process. We're going to continue some stuff on that, but we're having a good time talking about what's going to happen in eternity. So join us in that, and we just are praying that everybody would understand the covenant's real. It's given as an absolute, lasts forever. The promises are in Christ, and he wants to give them to you. And we're going through the privileges, and the first one we've talked about is protection, safety, and deliverance, that you don't need to say, I guess it's going to be difficult and I'm going to be unpleasant. My life's going to be unpleasant. He says, no, I'm going to protect you and guide you, like he did with you. So we'll pick this up. Father, we thank you for the truth of that all of us would receive that in the covenant, living in that covenant, in that agreement with you, that there's protection, there's refuge, there's safety. It doesn't mean that we don't have trouble, but rather within that trouble, we can be assured that you'll guide us, lead us, and deliver us to a safe place. And safety is an essence of who we are. So we thank you for that and praise you now in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. So Thanks for joining us, everyone.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Sounds great. Have a great day, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.